Your Ford is capable of reaching 300,000 miles. Owners have pushed their F-150s and Super Duties well past that milestone with original engines and transmissions still running strong. But most Fords never get there. The difference between a truck that dies at 150,000 miles and one that runs past 300,000 comes down to the mistakes owners make without realizing the damage they are causing. Today, we are exposing 7 mistakes that are quietly destroying Ford engines and transmissions. Mistake number 4 has caused more cam phaser failures than almost any other factor. Mistake number 2 is something Ford truck owners do every single day, thinking it is harmless. And mistake number 1 is responsible for more catastrophic engine failures than Ford will ever admit publicly. Mistake number 7 is trusting factory maintenance intervals. Ford's owner manual recommends changing transmission fluid at 150,000 miles under normal driving conditions. The manual also suggests oil change intervals of 7,500 to 10,000 miles on newer models. These numbers are not designed to maximize your vehicle's lifespan. They are designed to minimize ownership costs on paper and make the truck appear low maintenance at the dealership. Ford engineers have admitted they design vehicles to last around 250,000 miles. That's the target. The maintenance intervals are calculated to get the vehicle to that point, not beyond it. Here is what experienced Ford mechanics actually recommend. Change your oil every 5,000 miles with full synthetic, or every 3,000 miles if you tow or make short trips frequently. EcoBoost engines run hot and suffer from fuel dilution where unburned fuel contaminates the oil. This happens quickly and destroys the oil's protective properties. For transmission fluid, ignore the 150,000-mile recommendation entirely. Change it every 50,000 to 60,000 miles. Mechanics have seen countless 10-speed automatic failures in trucks where owners waited too long. A transmission fluid service costs $150 to $300. A transmission rebuild costs $3,500 to $5,000. Mistake number 6 is using cheap oil filters. The oil filter is the only thing standing between microscopic metal particles and your engine bearings. Bargain filters often have thinner filter media, weaker bypass valves, and cheaper anti-drainback valves. The anti-drainback valve prevents oil from draining out of the filter when the engine is off. Without it, your engine runs dry for a few seconds every cold start. Those seconds of metal-on-metal contact add up over hundreds of thousands of starts. Motorcraft filters cost maybe $8 to $12. That is the cost of a fast food meal to protect a $6,000 engine. Quality alternatives like Wix or Purolator Pure One are also acceptable, but avoid the cheapest options on the shelf. Cut one open and compare it to a Motorcraft. You will see immediately why the cheap ones fail. Mistake number 5 is skipping the turbo cooldown period. This applies specifically to EcoBoost owners. The 2.7, 3.5, and 2.3 EcoBoost engines use turbochargers that spin at more than 100,000 RPM under boost. These turbos are lubricated and cooled by engine oil. If you pull into your driveway after highway driving and immediately shut off the engine, the oil stops flowing, but the turbo is still extremely hot. When oil stops flowing, it can bake onto the turbo bearings and form hard carbon deposits. This is called oil coking, and it destroys turbochargers. Turbo replacement on an EcoBoost F-150 can cost $1,500 to $3,000. The fix is simple. After highway driving or towing, let your truck idle for 60 to 90 seconds before shutting it off. That small change can double the lifespan of your turbochargers. Mistake number 4 is ignoring cold start protection. Cam phasers. In Ford engines rely completely on proper oil pressure to function. When you start a cold engine, oil pressure takes a few seconds to build. During those seconds, the cam phasers are starved of lubrication and develop wear that eventually leads to the dreaded cold start rattle. Owners accelerate this damage by immediately revving the engine or putting the truck in gear before oil pressure stabilizes. They compound it by using oil that is too thick for cold weather or by running extended oil change intervals. When you start your truck, let it idle for 30 or 60 seconds before driving. Not 5 minutes like the old days, but long enough for oil pressure to reach all critical components. Then drive gently until the engine reaches operating temperature. Cam phaser replacement often runs $2,000 to $5,500. A few seconds of patience every morning is worth it. Mistake number 3 is excessive idling. When an engine idles, it operates at low temperature and minimal load. Fuel does not burn completely, and combustion byproducts accumulate in the oil and on internal engine surfaces. For direct injection, EcoBoost engines, this is particularly damaging. Incomplete combustion creates oil vapor that coats the intake valves with carbon deposits. First generation 3.5 EcoBoost engines have no fuel washing over the intake valves to keep them clean. Owners who idle extensively have seen intake valves with carbon buildup so severe that airflow was restricted by 40% or more. Extended idling also causes fuel dilution in the oil. At idle temperatures, piston rings do not seal properly. Unburned fuel mixes with the crankcase oil and destroys its protective properties. If you need to sit in your vehicle, shut the engine off after 2 or 3 minutes. Remote start is fine for heating the cab, but limit it to 5 minutes maximum. Mistake number 2 is taking only short trips. Short trips where the engine never reaches full operating temperature create the worst possible conditions for engine longevity. When an engine runs cold, moisture accumulates inside. Combustion produces water vapor, and when the engine does not get hot enough to burn it off, that moisture contaminates the oil and promotes corrosion. Oil dilution from unburned fuel is much worse during short trips because the engine never gets hot enough to evaporate the fuel out of the oil. Carbon buildup accelerates dramatically in trucks used primarily for short trips. The engine never runs hot enough to burn off deposits. If your daily commute is only a few miles, your Ford is aging faster than the odometer suggests. The solution is simple. Once a week, take your truck on the highway for 20 to 30 minutes. Get it fully up to operating temperature and let it run under load. This burns off accumulated moisture, evaporates fuel from the oil, and helps clear carbon deposits. Mistake number 1 is ignoring towing and hauling limits. This destroys more Ford trucks than any other factor. Owners look at Ford's maximum towing capacity and assume their truck can handle that weight all day in any conditions. That's not what maximum capacity means. Maximum towing capacity is calculated under ideal conditions. Real-world towing in mountains or hot weather puts exponentially more stress on the drivetrain. Transmission overheating is the biggest killer. When towing heavy loads uphill, transmission fluid temperatures can spike above 250 degrees. The 10-speed automatic transmissions have shown particular sensitivity to overheating. Owners have reported fluid temperatures approaching 300 degrees while towing loads well under rated capacity. When transmission fluid overheats, it breaks down rapidly. The friction modifiers degrade, seals rupture. And once a transmission has been overheated multiple times, its lifespan is permanently reduced. Always use tow haul mode when towing. This changes shift points and provides engine braking that reduces transmission load. If you tow regularly in mountains or hot climates, consider adding an auxiliary transmission cooler. A quality cooler costs $150 to $300 and can drop fluid temperatures by 30 to 50 degrees. That's cheap insurance against a $4,000 transmission replacement. If you have been making any of these mistakes, it is not too late to change. The 5.0 Coyote 5.8 has proven capable of 300,000 miles with proper maintenance. EcoBoost engines have reached 500,000 miles in documented cases. The difference between a truck that dies early and one that runs for decades is the owner. Take action today. Change your fluids if you've been following factory intervals. Start letting your truck warm up and cool down properly. Take it on the highway weekly if you have been making only short trips.